5,000 bills, by the way. There's between 4,000 and 5,000 bills introduced in Sacramento alone every 2 years. That's an awful lot of bills. There we go. Okay. And then how many of these bills actually may have an effect on your industry? Of the 5,000 bills introduced in Sacramento alone, how many pertain to the real estate industry and typically have a negative effect on the industry? Who remembers the answer to that question? 2,000. She got it right, I think. Say that louder, please. 1,500. You are right on. You're a great crowd. You know, I'll tell you something. I ask these questions year after year to a lot of the associations that I work with. I travel the state talking about this, and nobody ever remembers. So I'm proud of you. There's about 1,500 bills on the state level alone that can impact your business. So this is why it's so important to be involved, to know what's going on, to respond to red alerts, calls for action when you see them. Because, again, this is just state. This does not include local. It doesn't include the federal level. I brought my friend Pericles back from the 4th century BC, who said, just because you may not take an interest in politics doesn't mean that politics won't take an interest in you. And I can tell you, almost everything in your transaction has been legislated. And the bottom line is, we don't want to legislate ourselves out of business, because politics plays into what you do, and you need to be aware of what's going on so that we can fight back and we can keep our industry very, very strong. And then moving along here, we're just going to talk about some of the issues that we've been faced with over the past few years. One has been a service tax. I'm going to talk about the issues that we've been able to avoid first over the past few years. One is the service tax, which would have been a sales tax on all services. How would that affect you? That would include all real estate related services. So it would include commissions, it would include title, escrow, appraisals, home inspections, and I can go on and on. And you have to think, how would that impact your customers, your clients? If they're ready to buy a house and then they have to look at all of these taxes that add up, how would that affect them? Especially our first-time home buyers. So this was an issue that we were able to avoid for now. We're keeping a close eye on it again, but it definitely would have had a negative impact. And then point of sale bills. I'm sure you're probably all aware of point of sale bills on the state level that could have affected your ability to do business. They tie up transactions, they're time-consuming and costly to your seller. And possibly your buyer, and it possibly can affect your commission, your bottom line. We were also able to avoid the independent contractor withholding. Most of you, how many of you in here are independent contractors? Okay, and I'm sure you wouldn't have been okay with the state withholding 3% of your hard-earned money. Is that correct? Right, I knew it. All right. Some of the issues that we're looking at, we're keeping a close eye on now, is a split roll tax. Does anybody know what the split roll tax is in here? Okay, I know I talked about this a couple of years ago. It's an issue that hasn't gone totally away yet. We're keeping a very close eye on it. You all know what Prop 13 is, right? Yeah. Okay. Proposition 13 keeps our property taxes low. How many of you are from the East Coast? New York, New Jersey? Okay, so those of you who are going to know exactly what I'm talking about here. Property taxes in those areas are through the roof because they do not have Proposition 13. I have relatives, for instance, in the New Jersey and New York area who have moderate priced homes, about a $600,000 price range, paying between $15,000 and $20,000 a year in property taxes. We take for granted that we have Proposition 13. It's very important. What split roll would do, the split roll tax, what that would do is it would, it's really the gateway to modifying Proposition 13. What it would do is tax commercial property in a different manner than residential. And the problem here is that if the state can get its foot in the door on commercial property, what's next? Is it the second home? Is it an investment property? Is it going to finally be residential? Keep in mind, the state is constantly looking for revenue. And there's revenue in homes and people who own them, and they will tax to get what they need. So this is why it is so important to be diligent. What would happen? I mean, every homeowner should be very concerned about this, but in your line of work, think about it. I mean, what would happen to property values? And I can tell you, where I come from, property values are on the decline because property taxes are so high. So anyway, that's just, like I said, if you hear split roll tax or anything to do with Proposition 13, your antennas need to go up and you need to take action if you're asked to, please. The other issue is GSE and mortgage reform on the federal side. This is something that's being bounced around still. And also reduction or elimination of the mortgage interest deduction. That could go away. And I know everybody, I've talked to a lot of brokers, I talked to a lot of members who say, oh, they'll never do that. That'll never happen. How many things have happened that we said, that'll never happen, and it happens? And the truth is that there's a quote, that there's truth passes through 3 stages. First, it's opposed before it becomes reality. First, it is opposed, then it's violently rejected, and thirdly, it's accepted as truth. We do not want this to happen to something like the mortgage interest deduction. It's very, very important to be astute, to pay attention, to know what's going on. And what about, this is another win, by the way. How many of you responded to the call for action within the past few months that NAR, both NAR and actually c.a.r. had out? Wonderful, wonderful. And for those of you who weren't aware or missed it, basically the House of Representatives wanted to, putting together their transportation bill, H.R. 22, and wanted to tax mortgages to pay for transportation infrastructure. So if this had passed, it would have cost each borrower approximately $8,000. And it was grossly unfair to put that type of burden on a person that's taking out a mortgage. And again, you're looking at first-time home buyers. We want to see more first-time home buyers. That would have penalized, really, the first-time home buyer. It would have set a terrible precedent. But luckily, because of all of your efforts, we were able to defeat this, and it was not added in the transportation, part of the transportation bill for now. So anyway, that was great work. We're very, very pleased about that. So the bottom line is, if everything that I talked about had passed or passes, you have to take a look and see what your business would actually look like. And again, that's why it's so important to be involved, to know what's going on. And if you get a call for action, if you get a red alert, respond to it. Give to the Realtor Action Fund. I'm going to talk about that and tell you why that is so important. Okay. The Realtor Action Fund is c.a.r.'s political action committee. And it's something that we need to keep extremely strong. It's money that helps put realtor-friendly candidates in office on the local, state, and federal levels. It's money that's used to work with our elected officials, and the bottom line is we want to make sure that we have good candidates in office in the first place so that we can have good laws pass and get the bad laws, defeat them. If we don't have the proper people in office to do that, it's going to be very, very, very difficult. So this money is very, very important. Also, the Realtor Action Fund, the money that you give, a third of it can be used locally. And I know, like every other area that I speak to, you have local issues. Lastly, the Realtor Action Fund is nonpartisan. That means it's neither Democrat. We're not just for Democrats. We're not just for Republicans. We're for, let me hear everybody. What are we? The Realtor Party. We're the Realtor Party. We want to make sure that realtor-friendly candidates get elected on all three levels. And then I just want to briefly talk about the levels. We have the $20 introductory level. We have the $49 level. We have the $148, that's considered the true cost of doing business, and the $449 level, that's the California Silver Bear level. The true cost of doing business level actually gets you into the Capitol reception at Legislative Day, which is in early May. If you've never been, I really I strongly recommend you going to Legislative Day because you'll learn a lot, and you'll get to talk to your legislators one-on-one. It's a very powerful time. And I encourage you all, if you haven't been, to please attend. How many of you have been to Legislative Day? Well, that's great. And if you can get if you're a broker or you have a leadership position, if you can get more of your members to attend, that would be a wonderful thing. Also, the $449 level gets you into the major donor reception during the week of Expo, which is typically late September, I believe, this year, or early October. The stats for the West San Gabriel Association of Realtors, you had about 2,508 members, and 373 of you gave to the voluntary Realtor Action Fund. That is 16%. c.a.r. was actually asking, our leadership was asking that each association be at 16%. You all made it. Last year, you were only at 3%. So you really do owe yourself a big hand. This is wonderful. You brought in approximately $36,191.37. That's awesome. That's a great job. Next year, I know they're raising the bar slightly to 17%. I know you can do it. And by the way, I know dues billing is underway. So if you've not given yet, if you can give the $148, that would be wonderful. If you can only give $49, that's okay too. Every level is important. And with that, I want to say thank you to all of you who gave to the Realtor Action Fund at every level, whether it was $20, whether it was $49.